life's ruined.
In the depths of a street Valium addiction.
Like £50 a box that I was paying, so I was spending over £300 a week.
Alive to tell the tale.
30 a day, which is like, you're only meant to take 8 a day. So it was, and then when my addiction reached its peak, I was taking 60 a day, and that went on for over a year. So I was lucky that I wasn't dead.
Very nearly a statistic in a country gripped by crisis.
You know, it's really soul-destroying watching somebody just waste away in front of you. They're basically killing themselves. It was just horrendous, is the only word that I can think of. It just was a living nightmare.
1,051 people died.
The latest death toll lays bare the human tragedy.
The total for European charts.
A depressing rhythm, the annual drumbeat of lives lost. This drop in deaths is far from a victory. The tide is far from turning, according to those battling this war. But here on the front line of Europe's drug epidemic, substances continue to be sold within seconds. Deadly cocktails of drugs wreaking havoc on communities like this one, who have to pick up the pieces.
If you're living in a scheme, you don't really have the choice. You know, there's no avenues of social mobility left. There's no educational avenue, there's no economic avenue, there's no sort of kind of employment avenue out of that kind of desperation.
Government ministers say residential rehab is part of the solution, but campaigners say access to beds is difficult.
We are working towards getting 1,000 publicly funded spaces.
How many are there today?
That varies across the country, and we are working really hard to increase that capacity. But I think it's worth noting.
How many are there today?
I think we can't just focus on the beds. It's the fact that there are placements.
No, but do you know how many beds there are?
There are a significant increase in the number of beds.
The loss of life among women continues to rise, an unsettling trend for campaigners.
Coming into services that don't have that consideration for a kind of gendered approach might make it difficult for women to be able to access that service, particularly if it's quite male-dominated and there's potentially experiences of violence or domestic abuse.
The question is whether Scotland is now one step closer to shaking off the shameful record. Conor Gillies, Sky News in Glasgow.